welcome to my channel. Well, I'm going to call this one The Quest for the Perfect Knife, or the Perfect EDC Knife. And I'll just tell you right now, this is an individual quest if you're doing this. I mean, it doesn't matter what other people like. In a way it does, because you kind of form your opinions, or at least I do sometimes. If I see a knife that a lot of people carry, and a lot of people like, I don't necessarily jump on the lemmings bandwagon and just go and buy it because everybody else likes it. Sometimes that'll actually prevent me from getting a knife. It's like, nah, I'm not. Everybody likes this kind of knife, and like the Benchmade bug out. Everybody loves this knife and everything. I don't want one. Why? Because everybody wants one, and everybody's raving about it. And that's kind of like a not good mannerism or something, or habit, But in a lot of ways, it's helped me, because sometimes people are just buying things on hype. They're just buying it because other people say they like it, but your individual needs might be different. So what I did with in the Benchmade bug out situation was, when I was deciding what was the perfect EDC flipper knife for me, I'd considered the bug out, but I looked at the price of it compared to other knives of similar size and capability, and I just couldn't, justify it to myself. So what I did, and I know this is like, a real big no-no in the knife world and everything, but I bought a clone, and it was a full clone. It said Benchmade bug out on it, and I was doing this. Mainly, I wanted to see how close it was. I didn't have another bug out to compare it with, but I wanted to get an idea. Is that size and style of knife something that I would like? And I found in that I saved myself some money, because I wouldn't be I know there's a lot of bug out fans out there, and I get where they're coming from. You're basically getting it down to where you're not putting a lot of weight into everything. It's just a knife blade, which is really, and the handle is still sturdy enough to hold it. So I understand it. I just think that if the price was like $100 less than what they ask for it, it'd be a much more reasonable buy, in my opinion. And again, you get into prices and stuff. So, in my case, I don't know why it works. It works this way sometimes for me. But in my case, I settled on the Civivi Elementum. I mean, this one is a little spiffier version. It's an S35VN, but now they've come out with a button lock one, which makes me curious. But I know it's basically still it's not going to offer anything different than this one, other than the locking mechanism. Instead of a liner lock, it's going to be a button lock. It's basically going to be exactly the same knife. So I don't need to pursue that anymore. I don't need to buy all the different handle scales. I don't need to buy all the different versions and stuff of it, because all I wanted Civivi Elementum to do is come out with a larger version. Not just a button lock only, the exact same knife, just upscaled by an inch or so. Instead of a 3-inch blade, a 4-inch blade. Maybe 4.5. They never do it. They've never done it. They keep doing everything else and coming close and fixed blade and all this other stuff, but they don't do it. And you know what? I've given up on waiting for them to do it. Like, forget it. You had your chance. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna wish for it anymore. And at that time, after that, I no longer pursued flippers. I mean, I have different, versions of stuff that I carry, but I don't watch a bunch of videos on the latest thing that came out with the latest steel and the latest locking mechanism, because I found something that worked for me. It doesn't work that way on a lot of different stuff. Like with traditional knives, even though I've already got a bunch of Stockmans, I didn't have a case large Stockman. And I'm glad that I got it. Yeah, similar to a Rough Rider or something like that in that it has the same number of blades and everything. But I didn't have a case one. And what I was trying to do with case, I'm not gonna do it completely. I was gonna get one of every current pattern that they offer, just to compare it to a Rough Rider or something like that, just to see the differences in them and to see if it, in my mind, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you collect. If you can find something that works for you, that prevents you from continuing to pursue a bunch of different versions of it, then it's like a difference between a user and I guess you can be a collector and a user. I use a lot of the knives that I get. I rarely have anything that I would consider a save queen. I have knives that I don't carry as much, just because I find it's not the perfect EDC. I don't know if there's ever going to be the perfect EDC knife for everyone. One knife is not going to do everything. If I'm carrying this one, I'm usually carrying a Victorinox. Not for the knife reason, but for the multi-tool functions. All the other different little gizmos and gadgets come in here. It's like a little toolbox, carry around with you. And I got a little light attached to it too, so it's covering multiple things. This one right here is specialized. I don't use it all the time, but every time when I go out, usually I have this sucker in my back pocket because it's less hassle than a firearm. And you can open it. You can't pull a pistol out. Oh, look what I got. I'm going to open this box without, getting blasted back or something, But a knife, even an automatic knife, it depends. There's such a thing as, of a law called with intent to alarm. It's like if you walked into a bank with a shotgun slapped over your shoulder or whatever. Used to be you could get hit with, even though you didn't point at anybody, you scared the crap out of everyone. And it's just not normal. That's something that's regulated. But anyway, what I'm saying is, for me, there is no perfect EDC knife. There's no one perfect flashlight either. It's the same way. You can go down the same path. Now, I was also thinking about, I've called it knife addiction. But in reality, there is a big difference between this and a physical addiction. A physical addiction where you're putting some kind of chemical in your body is a lot different than a mental addiction. So I don't want to dismiss addictions before, because I know how that can be and how difficult that can be to get out of it compared to, you can break a knife addiction a lot easier than you can break an OxyContin addiction or something like, or fentanyl or whatever they've got out there. Because one is mental and the other one is physical and mental and psychological and everything else involved with it. So I don't want to minimize that. The people that struggle against addiction, don't get the idea that when I say knife addiction that I'm making it sound like it's as bad as a physical addiction, because I know. But anyways, I just wanted to put that out there for you, that when you're making your decision for the perfect EDC knife, have you ever reached the point where you're just satisfied with one knife? I mean, I used to be that way, where I would get a knife that was functional and it did what I needed to do. I didn't look for any more. I didn't look for any other ones after that. I was satisfied. And I guess once you start really getting into anything like knives or flashlights, or in my case before, locks and lock picking tools and stuff, for me, I get really immersed to it. I don't just like, oh yeah, I'll buy one cheap set, of lock picks and I'll be happy. I'll just pick one lock and I'll be happy. I'll just get one flashlight and it'll do everything for me. If you're that way, then you've got more discipline than I have. I commend you on that, because a lot of times what's going to limit you is finances. I can only afford one hobby at a time. I can't be doing a bunch of locks, a bunch of flashlights, a bunch of knives, and everything else. I have to limit them. So, for me, finding the perfect EDC knife is going to be, what might be a perfect knife for me might be not perfect for you. It might not fit your hand. You might not like the style of it. Your cutting requirements, daily cutting requirements, might be different. And if one person comes out there and tells you this is the perfect EDC knife, all you can really get out of that is it's perfect for them and their situation. It might not and probably isn't perfect for you. And that's why I have more than one knife, because to me, if I was just down to one knife, I could get by, but I would not be happy. It's like, oh, I'd miss having, if I was stuck with even this one, a long blade, I'd miss having a smaller blade. I'd miss not having a traditional knife. If I had a traditional knife, I'd miss not having a flipper knife, a modern knife. So you can limit yourself on this. And if you've got enough discipline, like I said, then great, because I've saved a lot of money by not, every time I buy a knife, it's $80 to $100. When I go to a traditional knife, now this is a little bit more expensive, a case, but a Rough Rider or something like that, $20, $25 at most, a lot of times. And you've got a fairly decent knife. Yeah, it's not going to be necessarily made as well or made in America and stuff like that, but it can get you by. If all you want is a knife, then I've gotten to the point where it doesn't have to be expensive for me to be happy. I mean, some people look at it as like you start off with Rough Riders and you evolve. Not necessarily. Don't look at that as that has to be a progression where you have to start out like this and you wind up with a GEC or an expensive knife. No, you can be happy with inexpensive knives. And if you are happy, don't let anybody convince you otherwise, that you need to buy a more expensive knife or you don't know true joy. If you're finding happiness in what you've got, then you've found happiness. And the only reason why you're looking for something else would be, I don't know, you're bored with what you've got, or you want to try something different. There's nothing wrong with trying something different. I mean, like compression lock. I didn't have a compression lock. That's why I bought this knife. I wanted something that was, that had a compression lock on it, a long enough blade, and you could do all the little fidgety, flippy things, Spidey flick, which, oh, you got to get out of the way. I couldn't do on any other knife before. Why do that? Well, I've seen people have done it. I never thought about doing a Spidey flick, and it was like, wow. Once you do it, yeah, it's a cheap thrill, but as long as you get something out of it. And people were always talking about drop shetty. Man, compression lock. You can't get more drop shetty than that. So I like having different knives. And I guess the answer, to the question is, what is the perfect EDC knife? It's going to be an individual thing. And if you can stick with one knife and do that and you're happy, then fine. I'm not that way. I know my nature. For the longest time, this is still what I consider one of my go-to perfect, basically all around, drop in a pocket type of knife. It's going to do everything I need. Cut open boxes, cut fruit, cut whatever. This one right here is when I get tired of that one. I want a little variety. I found out that this guy is super sharp also. I thought that guy was sharp, but man, it's Spyderco knows how to how to make a knife. And then this is just for fun and whatever. You know, I mean, because I can carry what's considered a switchblade, it combines like that with a small Bowie knife. I mean, what's not to like about that? And of course, you know, I don't have to convince Victorinox fans what's great about having a Victorinox. I actually usually carry two with me. I have the signature on my keychain also, so I'm usually always have a Victorinox with me. And then to mix things up and to keep it traditional, I usually drop in, even though this could be considered traditional, I usually drop in a traditional knife of some type of pattern that I want to carry around. So when I want to go to cut something, I usually have a choice between at least these, plus a little like classic, you know, a keychain knife too. So my biggest problem is what's available, and what's usually it's the EDC knife that I'm carrying is easiest to get to. Yeah, you can get to the knife on this, but you got to use two hands, and this one's a little bit too big. I could pull out a traditional knife, but you know, if you want to open something fast, nothing beats, you know, one-handed opening as opposed to two-handed opening. So yeah, that's usually what happens. I carry a bunch of knives and I wind up only using one. And a lot of times I carry way more knives than I need, but I'd rather be, it's like they used to say about guns, it's better to have a gun and not need it than need a gun and not have it. It's the same way with a knife. It's better to have one and not need it than need one and not have it. Because to me, going outside without a flashlight or a knife is like going outside without my clothes on. I mean, yeah, it could be done, but I'm going to feel awfully awkward about it. So anyways, that's just my rambling thoughts about that. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day. Well, thank you for watching, and have a nice day. Oh, God, did you see that? Oh, did you see that, Peppy? Did you see that? Did you?